Yeah, the cancel culture warriors, they're at it again. As I told you last week, the Wallabies will no longer contest the Cook Cup when facing England in Test rugby. This is so silly. I mean, who better than the famous explorer demonstrates the common links between Australia and England?
This cup has not been named after the head of the Confederacy, the inventor of the Ku Klux Klan, some genocidal monster. Cook was a great navigator. He was someone who had an immense natural curiosity, and he had a lot of respect for all the people that he came across, be they the First Nations people of Australia or the Ni Vanuatu people.
Well, now the cancel culture mob is coming after another significant figure in Australia's history, Sir Samuel Walker Griffith, former Premier of Queensland and the nation's first Chief Justice. A university, a city in New South Wales, a suburb in Canberra and a federal electorate all bear the name of Griffith, Sir Samuel Griffith. What makes this case unique is the move to cancel Griffith is because of something he didn't do rather than anything he's accused of actually having done. Rocco Loiacono is a legal academic and he writes for The Spectator Australia too. He joins me from Perth to explain. This is extraordinary, Rocco. I mean, Sir Samuel Griffith, a famous Australian, one of the fathers of Federation, as we say, helped put the Federation together in the early days. Why do they want to get rid of him? Why do they want to change the name of the university and the electorate and the suburb and the town?
Yeah, good evening, Chris. Yes, there's a push to have Sir Samuel Griffith's name removed from these institutions, these places, and the electorate, because it is alleged that he did not do enough during the expansion of European settlement in northern Queensland to stop violence against Indigenous Australians. Now, at the end of the day, I think it ill behoves us to make judgments at this point in time, more than 100 years after the event, because what happens is while we shouldn't obviously mythologise people, and there is a tendency to mythologise the founding fathers for what has happened, when we do make these judgments, we also forget that people are human and they make mistakes. And when we want to do that, then we forget the good that they have done. As you mentioned, Sir Samuel Griffith was twice Premier of Queensland. He was the first Chief Justice of this country, but he was also a great Liberal reformer. He worked with organised labour to ban the importation of foreign labour. He was a great reformer in the area of criminal law, where he actually codified the existing criminal law at the time, and Queensland, Western Australia and Tasmania are the legacy of that, where the criminal law of those countries is still basically the code that Sir Samuel Griffith wrote in those days.
But importantly, as you point out, there's no allegation that he specifically did anything to cover up or facilitate horrible crimes against Indigenous Australians. And it is a fact that horrible massacres occurred, but it's also a fact that, not in all cases, sadly, of course, but in some cases, people were prosecuted and people were punished for these horrible crimes under the law brought in by these British institutions and people like Samuel Griffith.
Yes, well, that's right. And Sir Samuel Griffith was also, before he became Premier of Queensland, was the Attorney General of Queensland, who would have overseen a lot of these prosecutions that you talk about. And as you say, to want to cancel or remove someone, expunge someone from history for something that they should or should have done or they didn't do enough to do something, is against the whole point that these people actually contributed to the rule of law that would have prosecuted people for the crimes that alleged they should have done more to prevent.
It's just nutty. It virtually says anybody who had any prominence at that period in our history should be depersoned, basically. And I don't know when that stops. I don't know whether anybody is legitimate anymore. It's a nonsense. Thanks for joining us, Rocco. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Dr Rocco Loiacono there. Of course, it's under these legal institutions that we establish in this country too that Indigenous people won their Mabo land rights and overturned terra nullius. So these laws and this framework's been important to everyone in this country, still is, hopefully always will be.